Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take complex ideas and turn them into actionable, fascinating insights custom tailored for you.
Today, we are diving deep into a concept that seems absolutely upside down for any high-pressure environment.
Leading not by command, but by what the source material calls strategic surrender.
It sounds like an oxymoron, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, surrender usually implies defeat,
Right.
but the mission for this deep dive is to show you exactly the opposite. We've collected a stack of sources that fundamentally reframe leadership
Shifting it from a top-down control mechanism to what?
to a robust, repeatable practice of strategic service.
And our goal is to identify specific principles, maybe some historical blueprints that can actually transform a leader's internal posture.
And prove that yielding control is, maybe, the quickest way to unlock loyalty, build deep trust, and achieve that sustained high-level performance.
Okay, so let's jump right into that core premise.
The leaders who win true commitment today, real stability, they aren't the loudest or the most controlling.
They're the ones who deliberately choose service as their strategy.
Exactly. And obedience, in this framework, means this intentional, deliberate surrender to a higher purpose, which is care for the people you lead.
That immediately connects to the crisis we see everywhere. I mean, burnout is rampant.
And we all know the statistic.
People quit managers, not companies.
Right. So if you get compliance without commitment, which is what you get from a transactional style, what's the risk?
What's the actual organizational risk of ignoring this shift?
Well, the risk is steep. It leads directly to talent leakage and what I'd call organizational brittleness.
The system just can't thrive.
It can't.
Yeah.
And this is exactly why the concept of servant leadership, which was originally defined by Robert Greenleaf, is more essential now than ever.
So Greenleaf's whole focus was prioritizing others' growth and well-being,
Yes,
so that the entire system, the whole team or organization, thrives because of that care.
that's it.
But for a lot of people listening, that still sounds nice. A nice idea, but not a competitive advantage. How does choosing service actually protect an organization?
When service is the strategy, people follow because they feel genuinely seen and supported, not just because they're mandated to.
So you get better talent.
You get better talent, and they adapt faster because you reduce all that internal friction. The leader is shifted from being the bottleneck to being the ultimate enabler.
Okay, let's unpack the foundational blueprint for this idea. To really understand the strategic shock of servant leadership, we have to look back.
All the way back to what is probably the most radical historical precedent in our sources. Jesus washing his disciples' feet from John 13.
This was a radical redefinition of authority.
Arguably the most radical
Yeah.
ever. You have to place yourself in that moment to really feel the weight of it.
So, first century Palestine, what was foot washing?
It was considered so degrading. It was the task designated only for the lowest Gentile slave in a household, the absolute bottom rung of the social hierarchy.
So it's an act of profound dehumanization, really.
Exactly. And yet, the Messiah, the one they were expecting to assume political dominance, military authority, he takes on this task.
It bordered on scandal.
A total scandal. And this single act is the philosophical shift. The one with all authority chose the absolute lowest posture of service.
It just shatters every traditional idea of dominance, hierarchy, entitlement.
And it demonstrates that true, lasting influence flows downward, from the leader to the led.
And structurally, this isn't just a moral anecdote, is it? It's rooted in a deeper theology called kenosis. It's referenced in Philippians. That's a huge word. What does it mean for the person in the boardroom?
So that passage states that Christ emptied himself, the Greek is eikonos, and took on the form of a servant.
Emptied himself.
Yes. And when the sources call this the ontological shape of redemption, they're essentially saying that vulnerability and service aren't just things God does.
They are part of what true power is.
Precisely. So translating kenosis for the modern leader, it means self-emptying isn't weakness.
It's purposefully setting aside your positional privilege, your ego, so that the talent and expertise of others can flourish.
It's creating space. It's the polar opposite of being a knowledge hoarder or, a control freak. This is the actual blueprint for lasting influence.
Because true authority is made real in vulnerability.
Not through relentless self-assertion.
Which brings us to the biggest challenge. Most modern leaders hear servant leadership or surrender, and they immediately fear it's soft.
Naive. Or that the whole operation will become rudderless.
So how do we respond to that criticism, that this is just capitulation to chaos?
We have to address that head on. True surrender is not spiritual passivity. It is an act of immense clarity and courage.
It's active.
It's very active. It's an intentional alignment with a greater purpose, the welfare of the people, and the mission. And when a leader does that, it yields strategic organizational consequences that are anything but soft.
Okay, lay out those yields for us. How does that intentional alignment translate into measurable strength?
The sources highlight three key yields. The first one is humility. And this is not false modesty, it's accurate self-assessment.
Meaning you know what you don't know.
Exactly. A leader realizes they are not the ultimate source of all knowledge, which immediately opens them up to correction and diverse input. That intellectual openness is critical in volatile environments.
That makes sense. I mean, admitting you don't know everything is just good risk management. What's the second yield?
Trust. This is the organizational currency. And trust is cultivated by these small but significant acts of surrender,
Like what?
like deferring a major technical decision to a team expert, or asking for input before you announce a change, or critically admitting you were wrong. Those little micro acts signal safety and competence.
And the third one, my favorite, is the paradox of freedom.
It's so counterintuitive. Paradoxically, stopping the compulsion to control every variable. It frees the leader from unnecessary burden.
And it frees the team to act independently.
Yes. And this massive reduction in micromanagement significantly increases organizational resilience and speed.
Because the team doesn't have to wait for permission to solve problems they already understand.
That's it.
So we have the philosophical shift with the foot washing, the theological shape with kenosis, and then these strategic yields: humility, trust, and freedom. Now we need the tools.
This is the essential bridge.
And I appreciate that the material introduces a practical framework, this SACRED leader acronym, to cultivate this daily practice.
It translates the big idea of surrender into a concrete daily action plan that anyone can adopt, really, regardless of their position.
I'll kick us off. First three letters, S, stands for surrender daily.
A short internal prayer or just a moment of dependence.
To align your intentions away from ego and towards service before your day even gets going.
And that orientation shapes the very next action. A is to ask first.
So you begin every significant conversation with genuine questions, not immediate announcements or directives.
Right. So instead of walking into a status meeting and announcing, we're pivoting because the metrics are down.
The leader asks, help me understand the barriers we're facing. What data points are most concerning you right now?
Exactly. Then C is to care concretely.
This means moving beyond abstract well wishes.
And identifying one tangible need and meeting it. If you see someone struggling with a specific tool, don't just tell them to figure it out. Resource the training. Find the expert they need.
Okay, now for the final three, which focus more on action and accountability. R is to release control.
This is the hardest one for a lot of people.
It means delegating not just tasks, but real authority, real clarity, and then letting them execute without needing your constant sign-off.
Then you have E, to evaluate humbly. This is crucial for accountability.
It means inviting objective, critical feedback on your own leadership.
And measuring outcomes against established goals, not just measuring your effort against your own perception of how good you are.
And finally, D is to disciple intentionally.
This means committing to actively develop at least one person toward becoming a servant leader themselves.
Which shifts leadership from just a static title to a sustainable training rhythm.
The beauty of sacred is that it's a rhythm, not a rule book. It helps make surrender feel less like this dramatic abdication and more like a series of small strategic decisions.
Now, to prove this is a winning strategy, let's look at a few historical archetypes.
Right, because the way obedience translates into action differs hugely depending on the leader. And the sources give us three fantastic case studies.
Where do we start?
We start with Moses, who demonstrates leading reluctantly. When God called him, Moses didn't step up with confidence. He listed his weaknesses, he tried to disqualify himself.
He basically said, I'm not qualified.
Right. And this resonates so deeply with modern imposter syndrome, doesn't it? The leader who constantly feels they aren't enough.
So that feeling, that sense of inadequacy, was actually his strength.
It was the source of his strength. His leadership grew not from self-confidence, but from radical dependence on something greater than himself.
That promise, I will be with you.
That was everything. So the counterintuitive lesson here is that feeling unqualified may be the clearest sign you're ready.
Because it forces the humility necessary for service. If you believe you're completely sufficient on your own, you won't ask for help or rely on the team.
Exactly. The dependence was the strategy. Next, look at Nehemiah.
He embodies strategic service.
Right. His work didn't start with a political mandate or some aggressive budget presentation. It began with compassion. He wept, he fasted, he prayed over the broken walls of Jerusalem.
So his strategy was born from grief and care, not ambition.
Yes. And when he finally mobilized the people to rebuild, he didn't dictate from the top of the wall. He modeled the work.
And that's the key distinction.
It is. He said, let us rise and build, not you rise and build. He put on the clothes of a laborer.
That's why the strategy gains so much integrity. When the leader is willing to get dirt under their fingernails and model the work, they silence critics and mobilize skeptics faster than any executive order ever could.
Absolutely. Then finally, we have the Apostle Paul, illustrating leadership through sacrifice,
His authority was cruciform.
meaning it was shaped by suffering. He didn't build credibility through prestige or comfort. He built it through constant endurance, imprisonment, and this deep concern for the churches he founded.
So if Moses was about dependence and Nehemiah was about modeling,
Paul was about demonstrating that influence is forged in vulnerability and sacrifice, not through the pursuit of comfort.
the cumulative message is pretty clear then. Obedience isn't a single behavior, but a foundational posture of service that informs radically different yet always successful actions.
But that posture isn't a one-time decision, is it? It sounds like something that needs to be formed through daily disciplines.
Right. If I want to lead this way, what actionable rhythms can I adopt immediately?
Surrender is definitely formed, not merely decided. And our sources provide several practices that reshape the heart to reduce that reliance on control.
The first being,
A regular prayer of orientation, just a small, dedicated practice to start the day, or a meeting that names dependence on God and refocuses your motive towards service.
and coupled with that, I'd imagine, is confession and accountability.
Yes, the practice of cultivating a trusted peer or mentor to disclose struggles and failures to. The leader who owns their mistakes is far less likely to resort to that defense mechanism of controlling their staff,
We also see the practice of Sabbath and rhythm.
which is fundamentally an act of surrender. By choosing to rest, you model trust in the bigger plan and show your team that the world won't fall apart if you aren't perpetually in command.
It prevents that compulsion to overcommand.
It does. And finally, reflective journaling, especially after pivotal decisions or conflicts, just to clarify your own motives.
Am I leading from fear, ambition, or am I leading from service and genuine love for the mission?
And these rhythms make the leader emotionally and spiritually capable of the hardest part of service.
Which is getting out of the office and into the work. I remember that short case study about the nonprofit leader, Daniel.
Daniel, yeah. He used what the sources called servant experiments.
What'd he do?
He committed to scheduling direct, hands-on acts of service, shadowing his frontline community outreach staff for a full day each month. Initially, he did it just to signal solidarity.
Which is a good move in itself.
A very good move. But what he found was so much more strategically impactful than just solidarity.
What happened?
His surrender wasn't an abdication. It was a posture that allowed the truth to surface. He uncovered a systemic, demoralizing communication breakdown that had been obscuring frontline realities for nearly a year.
And the frontline staff knew the problem.
They knew the problem, but felt too powerless to raise it.
Wow. So his simple act of service broke that control mechanism and allowed him to see the reality that was costing the organization time and talent.
Then he could shift to strategic action, co-designing a better template with the team who actually understood the problem best. It proves the posture unlocks the information you need for success.
Okay, so if we embrace this model, how do we measure it? Success can't just be financial outputs. How do you measure the health created by servant leadership?
The sources are very clear on this. The true metrics are organizational health indicators. We look at 3 key areas that predict long-term viability far better than quarterly earnings alone.
And the first is trust.
Is there genuine relational openness and integrity on the team? Do people tell the leader the difficult truth without fear of reprisal?
Second would be morale.
Is the team energized, supported, hopeful about the future? Or are they just counting down the clock?
And finally, engagement, which is about proactive problem solving.
Right. Are people deeply self-motivatedly invested in finding better ways to do things? Or are they just waiting to be told what to do?
These factors define that long-term strategic success.
Because this leadership model builds resilience, it fosters cultures marked by unity, and it allows for innovation that is grounded in humility, not internal competition.
So influence is built on character and service, not simply control.
That distinction, character versus control, is the fundamental difference between people following you out of professional obligation.
And people following you out of genuine belief in your leadership.
Think about the final distinction for your workday. The difference between feeling managed versus feeling seen and supported. True leadership is not about seizing power. It's about diligently stewarding that power for the welfare of the people you lead.
The path to lasting influence is paved with obedience and service, not ego.
So here's the thought for you to mull over as you transition back into your day. We discussed the profound strategic and theological significance of Jesus washing his disciples' feet, an act of radical surrender.
And the sources remind us that he washed the feet not just of his loyal followers, but he also washed the feet of Judas, the one who would betray him.
This raises the critical question for every leader, regardless of context. Who is at your table? A difficult colleague, a frustrating employee, a challenging partner whose feet you have consciously refused to wash?
And what is that refusal ultimately costing your moral authority and in the long-term health of your organization?